This podcast is brought to you by Blackaby Ministries International. To find out more, visit blackaby.org.
Welcome to the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast. My name is Sam. I'm your host, and this is the final episode of the Richard Blackaby Leadership Podcast for 2021. And Luckily, we've got Richard with us today.
It's always good to be with you, Sam.
It's always a pleasure, Richard. And
can you imagine the year has just gone by again?
It's one of those weird ones, you know. It feels like a long year, but it also, I feel like I just blinked and it's over.
Zoom.
And then
Yeah. Now you've got a 2-year-old, and so you realize how fast time moves when you've got preschoolers who are aging before your eyes.
Oh, I know. It's just crazy. She's using words that are just like, when did you learn that?
4-syllable words for a 2-year-old.
Who taught you that? Where did you pick that up? And luckily, it hasn't been any words too embarrassing.
Yeah, be careful what you say. She'll remember.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we thought as we end the year here with the podcast and kind of the last one, looking back over 2021, there's lots that could be said, but we're going to zero in on the relationships that we have, and really taking an inventory of our relationships as we come to the close of another year. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you, and just why should we look and take an inventory of our relationships? What would be the benefit of this as we look to the new year and look at this year that's passed?
Well, you know, Sam, and you've got a management degree. We understand inventory and getting to the end of the year. And if you've been in retail or anything like that, you've sold a lot, maybe hopefully over the last month. And so you kind of look over the shelves and you say, what do we have left? What's in the inventory left? What do we need to order in some more for stock for next month and the new year? I know we do some of that. Just we have a lot of books that we sell at different conferences and things, and we kind of will look over our shelves and say, oh, we're pretty low on that. We need some more before we hit the road again. Or I usually take the end of the year to kind of stock up on some things. I travel a lot, and so I've got 3 different suitcases depending on how long I'm gone. Hopefully it's just carry on, but then I've got a mid-size, I've got a full size, I've got computer bag and different things, and I've got all kinds of travel supplies in those. Everything from sleeping pills to cough drops and antihistamines and whatever. Whatever, just pens. Just so many different things. All kinds of stuff I just keep in my suitcases. And whether it's mouthwash or whatever else, and those, you're throughout the year you run out of stuff when you're on the road, and then I've got to go get some more of that. And so I like to at least start the year with everything stocked up. Okay, I've got plenty of pens, and I use 4 colors of pens: blue, black, green, red. That I put sermon notes together, different things, and pencils, and so this is just a good time to kind of take a quick survey to say, wow, I really ran out of that, or I'm all out of this. Mm-hmm. And now's the time to get on Amazon and order a bunch of stuff and get all supplied again. And so, a lot of businesses will do that after your, Black Friday sale and then Christmas time and end of the year clearances. Okay, now what do we got? Well, I think we do that in a lot of areas of our life where we'll just kind of take inventory of what condition are things in. Do we need to do some repairs on the facilities before we get into another season? I just was at a friend's place at the beach, and he rents out, and it was kind of the off season. And so I was noticing that a lot of those beach houses are all being renovated right now for the crowds that will be coming in the next year, and they want to add on, they want to repair, change the flooring out so that it's all ready to go. And of course, that's just wise stewardship management. But as I was thinking about that here just recently, I was thinking about, do we ever do that with our relationships? Do we ever just kind of pull up and and reflect and kind of walk through the various relationships in our life and say, boy, some of those have had some real wear and tear this last year. Some have really been neglected.
Yeah.
Some are running on fumes right now and really need some attention. Because what always happens with me, it seems like, is that I'll be on the road somewhere and then realize, oh no, I ran out of that. Or I thought I had more in my toiletry bag than I do, or I had this this bottle of Tylenol, and I went and there's only one left in there. I thought I had a bunch, and I've got this horrible migraine right now, and so and I think sometimes that happens with us in relationships. They have wear and tear as well, and we kind of presume sometimes on those. Maybe it's a staff that have worked for us, and it was a crazy year. We had a lot of demands on them. They had to kind of do a lot of extra work that they're not used to because of maybe COVID or other things, and maybe we're short-staffed right now, so we just had to have people put in longer hours. And everybody's willing to do that for a time, but maybe we need to stop and say, but how much did I really ask of this staff this year? Are they on empty? Do I dare ask them to continue working at that pace, that many hours a week, and so on? Of course, at Christmas time, there's always the famous story of Scrooge. And Scrooge, basically, a lot of what he realizes on Christmas Eve when the ghosts all come by is that he has neglected his relationships. He's neglected his partner. He's neglected his loyal staff. He neglected people who cared about him, friendships. He was so consumed with money that's all that mattered to him. And then one night, he suddenly realizes, for years, I have not taken care of my relationships. Now I don't have any. Nobody cares about me. Christmas morning, nobody wants me at their house. And what a sad life when you suddenly realize, why I've neglected really those things that matter most in life. I've just, you and I both recently were at a funeral, and funerals are always interesting because you kind of, you sort of get a glimpse into the relationships that people had. Yeah. Who shows up, who's sad. I remember famously someone said one time that when they died, they just wanted one person at their funeral who didn't look at their watch the entire service. That were so wrapped up in remembering them that they didn't care how much time it's taking. But for a lot of people, funerals can also just be a kind of a sad time where maybe there's some people where there's hardly anybody at the funeral, or nobody can think of anything good to say, or where this person made a difference in their life. And Galatians chapter 6 verse 7 says that basically God is not fooled, that we will reap what we've sown. And so the relationships that you have right now are largely the result of what you have sown into people. If you've got a large number of people that really care about you, that would drop what they were doing and come to your aid in a heartbeat if you needed them, if you're suddenly having a serious illness, you've got all kinds of prayer chains in action and people sending you greetings. If you've got to move and you've got all kinds of people coming to help you move, or because you've always been there for them, there are moments in life that reveal what you have been sowing into relationships, and sometimes we have some serious things like broken relationships and burnt bridges, and that are a drain on us emotionally, spiritually, and when we don't address them, when we don't repair them, they're just like a slow leak on our emotions, on our vitality. I just finished our book club right now. I was reading The Count of Monte Cristo, and a lot of that is which I finished at the beach last week. 1,243 pages.
I'm impressed.
I think I read it in about 2 weeks. I think, but But
I knew you could do it.
I was at the beach, and the unabridged version. I read every word. I underlined stuff along the way. But a lot of that story is basically some people that had some very broken relationships, mistreated people, and they thought they could just move on from it. And of course, in the end, they discover they can't. It comes back to haunt them. And so this is always a good time. I always encourage folks, especially as you get to year end, to do some audits. And there's a number of audits that you can do in your life. But one of the audits I think that are really important are your relational audits. And so let me just walk you through a couple. And one thing just to say as well at the outset here, and that is that in every interaction with people, you are either making a deposit or a withdrawal. Mm-hmm. When you talk to somebody, maybe you see them at church after the service, you see them in the lobby, or maybe you're in the lunchroom at work and you see someone, you start talking to them, or maybe you deal with one of your customers, your clients. But every interaction with someone, you're basically either making a deposit or a withdrawal. A deposit is a positive experience where maybe you're just encouraging them. You're being really positive. You're using words of affirmation for them. You're thanking them. You're appreciating them. You're noticing something of value about them. You're saying things that give them hope. And there's just lots of ways you can make deposits in people where basically when they leave the encounter with you, they feel better about themselves than how they felt before they encountered you. And that's a wonderful thing to do. And if you live your life that way, you're going to look and there's going to be a trail of people left in your wake that are just so grateful that they crossed paths with you. Yeah. But then, of course, there's also encounters that make withdrawals. And that is people they were having a good day until they ran into you. And you just have a way of rubbing people the wrong way. You just tend to want to talk about yourself. It doesn't matter what someone else is going through. You have it worse. You don't have a word of sympathy because whatever they're going through, your life's even harder. Or if they had a success, you've had an even greater success, and you just kind of want to talk about you. Or it just could be that you just don't have a lot of people skills, and you just say rude things. You're not even trying to be rude, but you rub people the wrong way anyway. Maybe you're just a gossip, or you're just critical. Maybe you're just negative. Every time people come around, maybe you're not ever smiling. I know people, certainly in the last year or two. Fortunately they've got a mask on a lot of the time, so you can't tell anyway, but they're not smiling. Yeah. They're down in the dumps, and then they wonder why nobody wants to come by and visit, and so it's just like you feel less, you feel worse about life and so on after talking to these people. And I don't know how many people actually realize that is them, that they are someone who makes withdrawals instead of deposits. They might feel like, well, I'm just going through a hard time, right? That's just how I feel, or that, that's fine. But do you realize that you're taking away from people every time you encounter them? And so, over the course of a year, you need to kind of do a little audit there and say, I think this was a withdrawal year. I think I was withdrawing a lot from folks. I was not in the kind of space to make a lot of deposits. And everybody will go through that. I mean, sometimes we're just kind of needy and we kind of need others to be there for us. But if all year long you're draining people, then at a certain point, red lights are going to start flashing on some of those relationships, and you ignore those flashing lights at your peril. And so maybe we could take a break, and then I'm going to just talk specifically about some of those relationships after the break.
Sounds good.
of all the books that my father Henry and I have had the privilege of writing together, next to the study course Experiencing God, I don't think that there's anything we've written that has received more positive feedback than this little daily devotional, Experiencing God Day by Day. People from all over the world have told us that God used these simple devotions to speak very powerfully into their life. And now we're very excited because beginning this coming January, we're going to be launching a new podcast called the Experiencing God Day by Day podcast. And each morning I'll be launching that day's devotional, which I'll be reading for you, so that no matter where you are, if you've subscribed, you'll be able to just hear the day's devotional. So we're looking forward to just how God's going to use that to speak into people's lives. And you can get this anywhere you get your podcasts beginning January 1st.
Rich, I know of there's a handful of people in my life that always make deposits.
You're fortunate.
Yeah, and it's
are those all your in-laws?
certainly on the list. Certainly on the list. We won't get too specific here, but there are certain people that just they just make your day, and if it's even if it's over email, even if it's a quick phone call, you're better off having been around that person. And what a great reminder to me when I am around those people. I need to be more like that.
Yeah.
I want to be that person to my friends and my family. And so that's just a great reminder. And as we wrap up here, I think you've got a few just individual relationships, a few specific relationships, just to look at that we can audit as we go into the new year.
Yeah, let me just kind of rapid fire a couple of these. One is just if you're married, obviously your spouse. I think every year, certainly, it's a wise thing for a spouse for you to kind of pull aside and say, so where's me and my spouse, my wife, my husband, what kind of toll did this year take? And maybe I had to work at home a lot this year. Maybe we're working out of the home office, or maybe we didn't get to go on a vacation like we normally do, or there were certain stresses. Maybe we lost a loved one because of a disease of some kind this year. I've shared before, but I'm a pretty type A-driven kind of person and work a lot, and there are times that just kind of wears out my wife, and I've gotten her right. Just things have been really thin sometimes where and of course it's not like I want to do that. It's not like I'm trying to do that. In my mind, it's always like, well, yeah, we got to go 90 miles an hour right now, but as soon as we things kind of slow down, and they just don't slow down all year. And so at the end of the year, it's like, okay, my wife's been, falling farther and farther behind trying to keep up. And, when I stop and I think about it, I realize, living with me this past year has involved a lot of withdrawals. And so that's a relationship I don't want to hit empty. So what can I do to make some major deposits? And, this fall for me was really, really busy. I was just gone as much as I think I've been gone in any fall season that I can remember. And last week we just were fortunate enough, we have a friend with a beach house that was sitting kind of empty here in mid-December. And so Lisa and I finally were just able to get away and just do nothing. I mean, I'm always working, but it's just,
practically nothing.
It's relaxing to work, listening to the waves roll in, and we took breaks,
and to be away, because I don't, just to be away from kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
You have to do that.
Yeah, and especially for my wife, because that's her job is grandkids, and she watches them and takes care of them.
As much as she loves them.
Yeah, and so we originally had said, I said, well, Lisa, I don't know how long she can feel like she could be away. We had the place for up to a week. I thought, well, let's at least go for 3 or 4 days, and we'll just kind of play it by ear. Well, in the end, we were there, we right to the limit, and I, we really needed that, and we both just kind of felt like, wow, sometimes until you slow down, you don't even realize just how much you need to slow down.
Yeah,
and
that's for sure.
And so, that was good. I was kind of thinking, I need to just do this every year because I tend to get really busy, especially in the fall. and just to kind of end the year and say, you know what, let me and my spouse get away, talk, review things, talk through stuff, make some plans for the future. Just a lot of times I just need to get on the same page and say, Lisa, I'm good with whatever you want. I just want to know, what do you think about this? What would you like to do about that? And so that was great. And I think at the end of the year, that's always a good thing. Sometimes another one for me, especially right now, is parents. We take that relationship with our parents often for granted.
Yeah.
Mine are getting older now. I travel a lot. Of course, I get it from them, so they can't really complain when I travel because
set the example.
I'm just doing what they did. But my parents, like today, my wife and I took your daughter Claire with us, and we went over and had lunch at my parents today, and I don't know that we've done that for a while. And of course, my parents now are in a kind of a independent living place, but my mom just really wanted to make us lunch, and she's kind of getting to the stage of life where it's not as easy for her to put meals together like it used to be.
Yeah.
But that was important to her. So we brought over a bunch of gifts for their tree, and we just spent, and I just came back from a week at the beach. I've got a lot of work to do, but that was important, and sometimes just letting your mom fuss on you and love you, and you listen to all of her aches and pains and problems, and there's just no shortcut sometimes.
Yeah.
Making deposits usually require time, and then of course with your kids and your grandkids. When you're younger, I don't know if others have noticed this, but I love my kids. All three of my kids, I think I've got a great relationship with them. They love me. I love them. But, when you're younger as a parent, sometimes you're so busy with stuff that you just don't notice as much. I swear to you that I've noticed more growth and changes in my grandkids than I ever noticed in my own kids, and I'm sure it's because I just know to notice now.
Yeah.
I just
and
pay more
you're
attention.
more removed now too. So I think when you're in the thick of it, it's hard to see sort of the bigger picture when you're just grinding every day with the kids. And so I think that having some of that perspective certainly helps.
And I have definite memories, especially of my maternal grandfather and grandmother. I knew them quite well, and I've got memories deeply implanted into my life. And I've thought now about my own grandkids, and I've thought, there's lots of times I'm around them, but are there memorable moments? Are there times where I speak something into their life and they genuinely know that they are loved, that they're valued? Now my older grandkids are 6, and the other day, the two twins recently just prayed to receive Christ, to become Christians. I mean, they've always kind of grown up in a world in which they believed in God, but now they're getting serious. They're actually talking about baptism and things, and wow, like just to be able to talk with those boys about what baptism means, what the Lord's Supper means. Some of these conversations, you just think, what a privilege to get to speak into their lives about things like that. And, and with kids as well. I remember when my kids were like teenagers, they're around the house all the time, but there were times where I would just want to, take them individually out for lunch somewhere and just listen to them, just ask them questions, just get to know them, not to take for granted that I did know what was going on.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, we all get busy. We all know those are good things to do. And before we know it, the year's gone by and we're out of touch. And we don't know what's going on as well as we should. And, this podcast is not a guilt trip. This is just to say, that's why you take audits. That's why you go down the list, child by child, your parents, people significant in your life, and say, how are things going with them? And
the things that we talk about on this podcast are as much for us as it is for those who listen. And this is we all have this, and I think those relationships that are closest to us are the easiest ones to be less intentional with. Like it's easy to just fall into a routine of taking it for granted and not kind of zooming out or taking aside special time, and so that can be hard for everyone.
Yeah, I think with friends too, I've kind of been struck by this, and I think that is one thing that I think is maybe good about things like Facebook and stuff, because until Facebook really blossomed, you had friends I've got friends from so many different stages of my life. Like I've got friends that I grew up with, friends that I knew in college. And then after I finished college, I moved 1,500 miles away to go to seminary, and I left that whole world and started a new world. And so I've got a bunch of seminary friends that I met during a very formative time in my life. And then I went to my first church, and I had a ton of friends that I made there as a pastor, and fellow pastors that I ministered with, and had prayer partners, and developed a lot of friendships there. But then I moved to a new job in a new province as a seminary president, and I began traveling, and I got to meet all these amazing ministers and pastors all over the world. And now I've got these friends all over the world, and now I've left that job, and now I'm kind of a full-time speaker, writer. I've gotten to meet so many awesome Christians, and so I've just got all these different layers of friends. And so it's funny because you'll post something on Facebook, and I'll have someone that I went to college with commenting on, and then someone that I was their pastor years later, and then someone I was their president, and they're a student at my seminary, and some pastor that I met speaking last year, and they were all commenting on the same thing I posted. Probably some hilarious pun that I posted.
No such thing, but
but what that says to me is, now it can be challenging to keep up with all the different friends that you made over the years. Some people just don't even try. They don't try. And one of the things I've done, I think I've shared this before, but is on Facebook at least, it'll roll through the birthdays, whoever has a birthday that day. And I've got about 5,000. That's the maximum friends you can have on Facebook, just a normal account. And so, a number of birthdays are going to come up every day. And I've really tried as best I can. If I know them, some of them are just, they followed me and I don't really know them personally very well, but if I know them, have a history with them, I'll try to just wish them. And I don't just write happy birthday. I want to say something, a wish, a thought, a blessing, a memory, a funny comment, but something that just blesses them. And I have people that just hate that they get off Facebook because they feel guilty if they have to do that. And in my mind, it never takes more than 5 or 10 minutes. And yet it's okay, through the course of 1 year, I have the opportunity to at least say some word of blessing to most of the friends in my life today. And why would I not at least one time in a year say something kind to people like that? And so, just to be intentional to say this is one way for me to discipline myself to make at least one deposit every year into friends. I might not have seen them face to face in 30 years, but we still keep up and that way. And so I would just say very quickly, relationships with your clients, with your customers, with colleagues at work. There's some people that opportunities just keep coming to them all the time because people like them. The word of mouth, they're always being recommended. Hey, this guy is great. He blessed me when he worked for me and helped me, and I know you love him. And we found that even here at Blackaby Ministries, that we just have a lot of goodwill. And I don't want to say it's just because we're just such likable people, but we really do try to be a blessing. We try to make it helps to be dashingly good looking. But it just when you take time to maintain relationships, and that's certainly a philosophy we have. If someone brings our team in to minister in their church or a meeting somewhere, we try as best we can, of course, to do a good job. We try to be a blessing to the people who brought us in, to whoever we're there to minister to. We try to do all we can to walk away and leave a good taste in people's mouth.
Yeah.
And of course, that's just good for business. Besides, it's Christ-like. People want to have you back. We have a lot of people that want to have us come back every year because of that. And it's basically just saying, how do we make deposits into people's lives that we work with and that have us? So if I were just to summarize just real quickly, how do you do that? What kind of person should you be? Here's maybe 5 things. These are real obvious, but one is just be positive. Be a positive person. Yeah. I tell you what, with all the politics and COVID and everything else, lots of hardship, no doubt about it. But you still have a choice whether you're going to just become a negative person. Every time people are around you, they know all they're going to hear is how bad everything is. And people are just drawn like moths to a flame to a positive person. And so you want to have people that like to be around you, that want to call themselves your friend. Just be positive. Second thing kind of goes with that is just be an encourager. Don't just talk about yourself. I witness this all the time. There's certain people that, I don't know what it is, they have to talk about themselves. And so if you come up and you talk to someone and you say, oh, my back, just been giving me grief here lately. I don't know what's going on. Instead of them saying, oh, really, like, when did that happen? What did you do? Or like, what are you taking for it? They'll say, oh, you think that's bad? Like, I've got this knee issue that's just driving me crazy. It's the most painful thing.
At least you have a back.
Yeah. It's like, and to say, you know what, like, just don't try to, in your interactions, don't let it always be about you. Figure out, just intentionally say, how can I leave this conversation with this person being encouraged in some way? A third thing is just be thankful. Be thankful for the investments others have made in your life. I know that you've got problems. Everybody does. But what are you grateful for? Just hold on to that, and that's going to just put a smile on your face. And a fourth thing is be humble, or be fun. Be someone that laughs. Are you known as someone that everybody knows your laugh? It's distinctive because they've heard it so much. They know what you laugh like because they hear you laughing a lot. I've got an uncle, my dad's younger brother, Will, that's kind of that way. He was just that fun uncle that always was laughing, always joking. He loved to tell puns that weren't even as good as mine, but he loved to tell them. And I know that smile on his face when he was going to say some funny thing and joke and tease, and I just thought, you always wanted Will at your party because like he was just a fun guy, and be that kind of person, especially in this day in which we live. And then a fifth thing is just be humble. Just realize everything is not about you. Every conversation doesn't have to be about you. Just be humble. And I'll tell you what, it's a humbling thing when you realize that there are people in this world who actually care about you. And, I've had some people in our family, the Blackabys, over the years, we've just made some wonderful friends, and we don't deserve them. And, this time of year, people will be giving donations to our ministry, or they'll be sending gifts, or they'll just be, sending a card, just telling us how much they appreciate us. And it's just so humbling to realize, wow, these people are just some of the finest people I know on the planet, and they see me as their friend. They care about me, and what a humbling thing. And at a certain time in your life, you're going to realize what really matters in life, and one of the most important things are relationships. And so, if you're going to audit your investment accounts, your retirement funds, the equity you've built in your home over the last year, maybe take some time just to do a quick audit of your relationships and make sure those are all up to quality that you want them to be, that they haven't been kind of withering away from neglect, that maybe you've assumed that they're still in great shape, but you better look a little more closely because there's some telltale signs to say that they're struggling. And oftentimes it's not too late if you'll circle back around and make the necessary improvements and investments, but it's always worthwhile to take time with that. And so I hope our listeners will do that, and you'll go into 2022 with surrounded by strong relationships with people ready to journey with you with whatever life has for you next.
Great. Well, I think we'll leave it there, and until next time.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. If this is something you enjoyed, it really makes a difference if you leave a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends. We always love hearing from our listeners, so email us at podcast@blackaby.org.